So hey guys, what if Naruto x Nunnally x Harem? Movie 2. All this for a mere child. Charles frowned, having a hard time believing that a mere child could pose that much danger. I assure you that looks can be deceiving. He may be a boy, but underneath all that is a killer. He was even able to kill Alois. Shinzel reminded his father, who nodded at that accomplishment. While the boy did use tricks and deception to achieve victory and Alois was the most arrogant of the current knights, he was still very talented and there was no questioning his might, yet a child nearly 2 decades younger was able to best him. Charles stared hard at his son, taking in all the information he was given. After what seemed like forever, he finally said, "And you are sure this will benefit our country?" At first, no, the skillful schemer stated, "We need more than him simply staying here as a prisoner for us not to invade, so if I may suggest a plan. XXXXXXXXXXX. Back in China. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto's eyes widened at the sight of the woman in front of him, and despite his best efforts he was not able to stop himself from blushing. She was that beautiful. The woman was somewhat tall, possessed lithe fair skin and a body figure that even models would be jealous of. She had beautiful shoulder-length black hair that was styled in a bob cut. Her eyes were a beautiful light purple color and were so clear that anyone could easily get lost staring at them. Her breasts were C-cup in size, and Naruto had to mentally reprimanded himself for recognizing her measurement. Damn those personal attendants that Shifu had assigned to him, they put weird ideas in his head. Another thing that caught his attention was that despite her legs being slender and beautiful, Naruto saw slight outlines of leg muscles. This woman can definitely unleash some mean kicks if she chose to. Her clothes were untraditional as well. While most women of Chinese nobility and royalty liked to wear either extravagant and gaudy robes or beautiful Chinese dresses, this young woman chose to wear more modern clothes. Starting from the top, she wore a dark blue short jacket with long sleeves and underneath it she had a dark gray cashmere sweater. The skirt she wore was long and black in color. The skirt also split just before her thighs, and if Naruto's eyes weren't deceiving him, she appeared to be wearing tight shorts underneath the skirt. Finally, to complete the look, the woman wore high-heeled, knee-length dark boots. "Who are you?" Naruto asked after finally recomposing himself to ask coherent questions. "I am." She looked at the emperor, who nodded reassuringly at her before leaving the room. "I am Emperor Yao's firstborn daughter and Lawa's older half-sister, Nunnally." Naruto looked surprised. Lawa's half-sister? That couldn't be true, right? Jin told him that being the emperor allowed Yao to have many wives, but the photo in the Yao former bedroom showed him with only one wife, and from what Naruto had observed, the emperor showed not even a remote interest in any other women. "Yes," she answered. She then caught the blonde off guard by bowing deeply. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. All of this is my fault. None of this should have happened. Because of me, my little sister was put in danger." "Wait, what are you talking about?" Naruto looked confused as she took a seat and sighed softly. "I guess I should start explaining things from the very beginning. You see, before Emperor Yao met little Lawa's mother and made her his empress, my mother was chosen and later made as one of the concubine wives for the emperor," she began. Naruto felt his mind slowly drift as her words were painted a vivid scene in his mind. "A long time ago," she continued as Naruto in his mind saw the palace from a few dozens years ago. Not much had changed, perhaps a few of the decorum were missing here and there. But he then saw a younger Emperor Yao. While he seemed to be a few decades younger, he still retained some of his present features. Yao was recently crowned as the new ruler of the Chinese Federation after his father's passing. He took the title like a true emperor, and despite having a big harem of women set up for him, he showed no special interest in any of them. The only thing he cared about was running his nation and supporting its people. Soon the scene in Naruto's mind changed and he saw Yao sitting on his throne. The crowd of people in front of him were praising him as one of the greatest emperors to ever grace their nation, but members of the nobility standing behind him showed nothing but contempt. Despite the many achievements and the love of the people he gathered during his first years as an emperor, the traditionalists and the eunuchs from nobility started pressuring him to sire a child as soon as possible. They sent him their most beautiful daughters to be wed as concubine wives in hopes that one of them would catch his fancy and would be made an official wife, and an empress as well. But unlike his father, Yao never slept with any of them and made it resolutely clear that he is not interested in any of them. In the end, most of the wives gave up in trying to woo the emperor and simply enjoyed the luxuries they received from being his concubines. The scene then changes to show the Emperor Yao meeting one of the wives at the gardens of the palace, but that was until he met my sisters, Luo's mother, Fen Yanhua. Yao's eyes softened for the first time in years when he spotted a beautiful, white-haired woman with red wine-colored eyes. The woman watched as Yao slowly approached her, and once close enough, the two gently embraced each other. She was the one woman he had truly fallen in love with, and she reciprocated his feeling with equal love. The days they spent together were pure bliss, but, while she was his one and only true love, she wasn't the first one to bear his child. Wait, Yao had. Naruto's voice broke through the story and the young woman made a small sound of confirmation. Yes, before Fen Yanhua was made part of Yao's many concubine wives, he was intimate with another woman. Well, it was intimate for them, given his years of pent-up. Naruto shouted comically, no details please. Yes, of course, Nunnally cleared her throat, but a small mischievous smile had graced her lips. Moving on, when my father was first given his unwanted harem, he made sure to keep us much distance from the wives as possible, rejecting all of their advances, but my mother was different. Instead of throwing herself at him like a common bimbo, she offered him friendship. Nunnally then stopped her story for a moment and started giggling. I remember laughing when my mother told me that after she was married off as a concubine wife, one would normally expect that the groom and the bride would consummate their marriage after the wedding ceremony, but mother and father instead spend the whole night talking and drinking. Despite knowing how serious the story is, Naruto himself couldn't help but chuckle. He can only imagine how Yao's and Nunnally's mother's honeymoon would look like if they had one. They would most likely simply spend the whole day playing chess in the palace. After recomposing herself, Nunnally continued with the story. After a couple of years their relationship grew, but it never got past the friendship stage, that is, until that one fateful night. Both mother and father didn't give me many details, but from little they told me, I know that father was in a very bad mood after a meeting with some particularly nasty nobles, and after having a bit too much to drink that night, his control over himself slipped. That night, father and mother did the deed. It was during the same night that I was conceived. After processing what he just learned, Naruto motioned for her to continue. The next day mother and father had a deep talk about their relationship, during which my mother confessed her love for him, but unfortunately, he could not return those feelings. While he treasured her dearly, the spark for intimate love simply wasn't there, so he decided to be honest and told her how he truly felt about the matter. For the next several days my mother cried a lot while father did his best to comfort her. Eventually, she accepted the reality of things and decided to remain as his friend. Her love for him might never fade away, but she would not force it upon him. Nunnally looked down and wiped away a stray tear drop from her cheek. Naruto wanted so bad to jump from his seat and embrace her in comfort, but he resisted the urge and instead offered handkerchief. She accepted it with a small smile, and after a few minutes of silence, she continued with her story. 9 months had passed since that night and I was finally born. While mother and father weren't a true couple, they still loved me like every parent should and made sure that all my material and emotional needs were met. Since my birth a few years had passed and little Luo's mother, Fen Yanhua, had finally arrived at the castle. Out of all the noble families, Fen Yanhua's family was the poorest and on the verge of collapse. One could even say they were on the verge of becoming beggars. Sending Fen to be married off to the emperor was the family's last-ditch attempt to save themselves, and they succeeded, partially. Now that definitely piqued Naruto's interest. When father laid his upon Fen Yanhua, for him it was love at first sight. That love only grew deeper the more he got to know her, and only after a few short months since her arrival, she was turned into his official wife and made empress. Fen Yanhua's parents at first believed that with their daughter being made an empress, they would be able to wash away all their troubles and curry favors by manipulating her. But what they didn't expect was for how deeply Fen would fall in love with the emperor. Fen refused to abuse her station to help her family, and this led to the family trying to force her to obey. That, in the end, proved to be their greatest mistake, as father descended upon them with the fury of a war god. I am not sure how he punished them exactly, but last I heard, Fen's parents were seen working in some remote farm while the rest of the family was erased. Nunnally stated with a smirk. Naruto shivered at that. something told him that he really didn't want to know the full details of what exactly Emperor Yao did. After the troubles with Fen's parents were settled, her relationship with father began to blossom even more. To the nobles, Fen's and Yao's relationship was like an eyesore that no matter what they tried, would never go away. To the common people their relationship was like a match made in heaven, and because of that belief, the support to the throne had increased. As for my mother, well, despite seeing the love of her life taken away by another woman, she never held a grudge and was happy to support their love. Mother also told me that she even became best friends with Fen and the two of them liked to pull pranks on stuck-up nobles, the girl said with clear delight in her words. In his mind, Naruto saw the image of two women pouring laxatives in the meals being prepared for the nobles, HMPH. Bush League. He will give A+ for effort, but C in creativity. Why the hell is he suddenly thinking about pranks? Several years later, Fen gave birth to my little sister and she was so cute. I remember how Mother and Fen couldn't separate ourselves from her the day she was born. Even father didn't dare to interrupt our moment. I also remember that Fen was so happy that day, that she promised father to have a 3-zoi. Sorry, got a bit too excited at the memory. Anyway, the next day a huge crowd had gathered outside the palace to hear the emperor announce the birth of a future heir to the throne. It was amazing. Naruto nodded in agreement. Hey, I bet it was. Wait, if you are his first daughter, then why was Lihua named as the heiress to the throne? Shouldn't the firstborn inherit the throne by royal tradition? Nunnally sighed before explaining. Normally you would be right, but that only applies if the firstborn was conceived between the emperor and the empress. Despite being close to my father, mother still possessed the title of concubine wife. For me to inherit the throne, she would have to be made empress. Naruto then looked even more confused. Then what's the point for the emperor having a big harem? Wouldn't that cause infighting? The blonde sweat dropped when Nunnally's sigh became more like a white cloud of exasperation. The harem existed, as sort of like a backup plan. I don't need to remind you that the lives of royal family members are almost constantly in danger. Assassinations, accidents, war and many other factors could lead to the death of the royal family. What if in the off chance the entire royal family turns up dead? If there is no emperor, empress and heir to rule, then who would lead the nation? That's where the harem plan steps in, so the emperor or empress would leave behind several children of royal blood, in case the worst-case scenario happened and someone needed to step up as the future ruler. After hearing her explanation and thinking over for a bit, Naruto gave Nunnally a serious look. The young woman only smiled kindly at him in return. You don't need to worry about me trying to create an assassination plot to claim the throne. I would never do anything that would place little Lihua in harm's way. I don't care that she is the future empress of our nation. She is and always will be my dear little sister whom I love dearly. I would do everything to ensure her happiness and the prosperity of our nation. Naruto raised his eyebrow in inquiry at her last words. Nunnally didn't hesitate in answering him. I love this nation almost as much as my parents and little sister. I want to see it prosper and its people become happy. That is why I dedicated my whole childhood for studying and training, economics, social affairs, military affairs, governing. I learned it all with the help of my father, who provided the best teachers available. I even made sure to receive combat training as well. Unlike the nobles who like to sit on their asses all the time, I would rather help our nation grow. Damn right. Naruto wholeheartedly agreed, moving his hand in front of her with the palm open. At first, she was confused by his action, but then quickly understood what he wanted and with a smirk gave him a high five. And that's not all. My mother also shared my views about our country and she actually became a spy for my father. She mingled among the nobles and the other harem wives and reported any suspicious behavior directly to father. She even spied on her parents who were, well, to be more accurate, they were my grandparents. You see, my mother's family used to be one of the top noble families within China. In fact, they possessed so much influence, that they actually planned to stage a revolt and overthrow my father. They wanted to use my mother as an assassin against the emperor. But we couldn't accuse them of treason without evidence, so me and my mother pretended to be on their side, but in actuality were gathering proof to use against them. It took a while, but eventually we gathered enough incriminating evidence to declare them as traitors. Naruto leaned in so he could hear better in what happened next. The very same day after my grandparents were declared as traitors, father's soldiers raided the family compound, and I was the one who led the raid. We arrested everyone who was inside and sent them straight to prison. With that done, I thought that the Lee noble family would be erased from the records permanently, but father had other ideas. He instead offered my mother to become the new family head and reform it, but she refused and passed on that title to me instead. I was hesitant to accept, but with the encouragement from mother, father and Fen as well, I accepted the position as the new head of the Lee family, Nunnally declared proudly. So what happened next? Naruto asked. Well, it took some broken bodies, broken buildings and lots of cantaloupes. Cantaloupes. Nunnally only smirked at him, once again. You really don't want to know. Anyway, it took me several months to flush out the remnants of my grandparents' supporters. And with that finally done, I was able to cement my position as the new family head. Also, becoming a true member of the imperial court gave more freedom in taking action for the betterment of our country. I rebuilt my noble family from the ground up and changed many of their old policies. Of course, the other noble families didn't like, and still don't, how I don't conduct myself as a true noble. Well, that is at least according to their standards, but it didn't matter how much they complained as they couldn't do anything about it. I had the emperor's full support. Through my efforts, the Lee family once again became one of the top nobles families in the Chinese Federation. That's amazing. To completely fix your family mistakes and to achieve such a high position while still being so young is nothing short but incredible. Naruto praised as the young woman mumbled a silent thanks for his words. She felt a bit embarrassed at being praised like that. For all of my contributions to our nation after I became the family head, I was allowed by father to attend the imperial meetings where the most loyal and most influential leaders gathered. Ranging from various military generals, to our brightest scientific minds, each of them were allowed to say their thoughts about country matters and provide suggestions or ideas to the emperor. The meetings were so exclusive, that I was actually the very first official noble allowed to attend them. The other nobles even now aren't allowed to attend these meetings, simply because it's clear that all they care about is expanding their own influence. Nunnally then smiled brightly at Naruto. Life seemed to be so perfect back then. After I became the new family head, my mother was relieved of her duties as a concubine, but that was something she herself wanted. She instead was assigned as one of the ministers of foreign affairs. She always had a knack for diplomacy, so she adapted quite well to her new position. Another thing I should mention is that her job as a spy is still ongoing. During her trips to other countries she always keeps an eye out for any suspicious activity that might bring harm to our country. As for Fen Yanhua, because of how popular she was with the common people, father allowed her to become the spokeswoman for the people. She would often organize festivals and charity events with backing from the throne. As for little Lihua, despite how much I wanted to, I wasn't able to spend much time with her. My duties as the head of the family, plus some extra duties that were assigned to me by father, kept me extremely busy. During the years, the number of times I actually interacted with her can be counted with both hands. Honestly, I don't think little Lihua even realizes that she has an older sister. Nonetheless, I still love her very much and watch over her very carefully, making sure that there are always other guards close by to protect her besides you. Not only that, I am also the one who selects her classes so she would be properly prepared for when it's time for her to become Empress of the Chinese Federation. Wow, you really love her, don't you? Naruto commented with a smile, and then looked directly into her eyes. Alright, now I believe is a good time for you to explain how you're the one at fault for the kidnapping event from several days ago. Yes, I am about to answer that. Nunnally's voice was filled with clear sadness as she began explaining. After Lawa's mother passed away, my whole world came crashing down. It created scars within our family that will never heal. She then looked away in shame, and out of all of us, little Lihua was the one most devastated. She became extremely reclusive and insecure, as if all life was sucked out of her. Yeah, that's exactly how she was when I first met her, Naruto softly agreed, remembering the scared girl Tianzi used to be, before she opened up to him as Lihua. I tried everything I could to help her, but with the Empress' death, the nobles saw this as a perfect opportunity to take control of our nation's future. They are trying to manipulate the future Empress into becoming a mindless pawn for them, Naruto stated. During social gatherings he would always stick close to Lihua and wouldn't allow for the stuck-up nobles to surround her. I had to redouble my efforts to ensure that those damn eunuchs didn't do anything stupid that could endanger the empire. But I have my limits, Naruto. there is only so much I can do. Time is running out and my little sister is nowhere near ready to lead our nation. Even worse, our father's, Emperor Yao's health is declining, and she might be forced to take the throne early, whether she likes or not. At that statement, Naruto looked at Nunnally with slight anger in his eyes. You don't believe Lihua will be able to lead us, do you? The older sister nodded with a defeated look on her face. She's too young, Naruto. The eunuchs would take advantage of her the moment she sits on the throne. I had to do what I could to protect her. But things started to change after you came along. The dirty ragtag child that Jin had brought from the desert, she said, remembering the day when the Grand Master of the Shaolin monks returned from his mission carrying a sleeping boy, a boy who looked like he hadn't cleaned himself in years. Because of you, Lawa's condition has improved and she is slowly returning to the energetic young lady she once was, Nunnally stated gently. If you say so, personally, I don't believe I did anything that much, Naruto honestly commented, missing the older sister's dumbfounded look that clearly said really. Despite what you say, your arrival here had a positive effect on her. So, you must have done something right. The young woman shook her head in disbelief before regaining her calm composure, but unfortunately, her recovery is too slow and time is still at the essence. So, out of desperation, I made a big mistake. At those words she clenched her hands into fists. Thanks to Mother and my own network of spies operating outside our border, I came across a very distressing piece of information. A certain country has slowly started mobilizing its military. Let me guess. Naruto gave a knowing look. Britannia. A solemn nod was his answer. Britannia is preparing for war against us. I've received reports that they started increasing production of weapons and military vehicles. Small scouting units, day and night, watch our borders closely, probing it for weakness. We even caught some their own spies trying to infiltrate us. But we couldn't extract any information out of them as they committed suicide upon capture. She frowned heavily at her next words. I was pressed for ideas on how to protect our homeland since Lihua is not ready to take the throne from our father, whose health is slowly declining. So, in a desperate attempt to buy us some time, I organized a meeting between myself and a representative from Britannia. To my surprise, the representative turned out to be someone who I had never expected. Schneisel el Britannia, with a voice full of venom, she said Prince's name. Naruto was surprised to hear it, but then quickly remembered how good at sweet-talking and acting the Prince Charming was. He only started showing his true colors after Alwa's death and when he tried to put all the blame on Naruto. He told me that Britannia's nobility wants to invade China, claiming that we are a threat to Britannia's status as the most powerful country. So, Schneisel proposed me a deal, which for me felt like it was a deal with the devil. Considering the guy's character, Naruto could not help but nod in agreement. I would lower security during the annual meeting between the Britannia's ambassador and Emperor Yao, and during the event, he would send in Britannia's most elite soldiers disguised as bandits to kidnap Lihua Tianzi. And you agreed to that? Naruto shouted out in outrage. Unfortunately, there's more, she said. Tianzi would have been taken out of the country and then would have been rescued by conveniently placed Britannia's soldiers. Afterwards, she would have been moved to Britannia for her own safety and protection, but in reality, she would have been held as a hostage to keep the Chinese Federation in line. Britannia's nobles would lose their excuse to invade China, and with no heir present, you would have been made heir to the throne by default, Naruto finished. It's not like I want the damn title, but at that time I saw no other way out. He told me that if I didn't accept the deal, Britannia would declare war after the annual meeting between Britannia's ambassador and the emperor. They would unleash their full military might, bringing destruction and death to the nation we bled and sacrificed so much for. So, I agreed, Nunnally stated, her eyes becoming misty as she tried to explain her reasoning. But you endangered your own little sister, your own family. Naruto scolded. How could you do this to her? Do you think I really wanted to do this? The older sister snapped. Of course I was disgusted by what he proposed. I wanted to kill him where he stood, right there and then. But I had no other choice. It was the only way to ensure China's survival. He promised me that Lihua would be kept safe and absolutely no harm would ever befall her during her stay in Britannia. Everything she would have ever needed would have been taken care of, along with continuing her studies when things died down. When I accepted the deal, it felt like I was ripping my heart out. I made the bastard repeatedly swear, with my hands squeezing his throat, that Lihua would be kept safe. Naruto sighed as he gave a weak smile. He at least fulfilled that part of the deal. I mean, when I got to her the kidnappers practically held her like a baby. She even slept through the whole explosion and fight. Explosion. Nunnally exclaimed in alert. Ah, sorry, Shifu told me to keep that detail a secret, or Emperor Yao would castrate me and afterwards slowly beat me to death with my own tool. Naruto shuddered as he really didn't want to see that happening, ever. Anyways, the girl continued while glaring slightly at Naruto, with me changing the guard shifts rotations and Schneisel's elite soldiers disguised as bandits, it was all too easy to kidnap little Lihua. I even made sure that city guard patrols would be arranged in a way that the kidnappers could escape without being interrupted. She then added, and, you were also involved in this plan. Wait, me? Naruto looked surprised. How? I had my agents tracking you since the moment Master Jin announced you as his apprentice. I even had people watching you when you took baths with your personal attendants, and I must say, for a strong fighter you are quite easily subdued by those three ladies. The sister of Tianzi gave a small smirk upon witnessing Naruto's blush at that particular detail. Still, despite gathering all available information about you and planning accordingly, it all proved to be for naught as you surpassed all of my expectations, probably for the best. She shrugged, knowing that her miscalculation was a blessing in disguise. So, how was Alois involved in this whole scheme? Naruto inquired. He was included as an insurance in case someone, in this case you, actually managed to catch up with the kidnappers. His mission was to stop the pursuers and then eliminate them. Schneizel wanted to make sure that his plan could still be salvaged in case the worst-case scenario happened, the young woman explained. No wonder he tried to take control of the jeep back then, Naruto muttered. Wait, does that mean the Monica was also? Nunnally interrupted him as she expecting him to ask that. No, and to be honest, I still don't know why she was included. I was thinking that maybe she was brought along as Alois insurance, just in case he needed someone to cover for him. Giving her sincere offer for help, I believe she was never told about the plot. So she's ignorant of the truth, huh? Naruto sighed before smiling. Monica seemed to be an honest girl and he did enjoy talking to her during the event, until he remembered that she might have unknowingly signed his death papers. His silence was all Nunnally needed for her to continue. As you can probably tell, Schneizel is a master at hiding his true intentions, she stated, shocking Naruto slightly. Was that prick really that hard for others to read? It was kinda odd that Naruto saw and felt the negativity rolling off that asshole in waves. From the teen's perspective, that guy was practically screaming and trustworthy. If anything, I think Schneizel used Monica's honorable nature as a tool to make her and Alwas' offer for help more sincere. After a moment of speculation, the lady continued, and now comes the part of the plan where I had to create a diversion for the Britannia soldiers. So you were the one responsible for causing the first explosion? Naruto guessed. Correct. It was simple, really. I used a few extra loud explosive grenades in an empty hall next to the throne room and the loud noise covered the sound of explosives set off by the disguised soldiers. Their explosives were different as they only had enough destructive capabilities to make a small breach for soldiers to infiltrate. But what the explosives lacked in power, they more than made up in making less sound. With my help, their entry went perfectly unnoticed. Misdirection is always a powerful tool, if used right. She listed off with a proud smile, before fake coughing loudly after she realized that she was describing Tianzi's kidnapping plan and it was not the time to feel proud. To continue from where I left off, I was in contact with the prince during the entire event via a small communicator that was hidden behind my ear. She explained as she placed a very small, almost see-through earpiece. We had received an update from Alois that you had managed to catch with the soldiers' escape vehicle and quite violently stopped it. He then reported that despite losing a few men, the plan was still on track. He pretended to fight against his allies while the disguised soldiers would knock out Monica and bring her to Britannia after dealing with you. That does explain why Monica was actually winning her fight against a clearly stronger opponent, Naruto commented. So, her enemy was holding back. His attacks were aimed at incapacitating and knocking her out instead of injuring her. Exactly, and as the battle raged on, Alois realized that he had severely underestimated both you and Monica. You, Naruto, had defeated two of his elite soldiers while Monica was close to winning her fight. Her opponent might have been holding back, but he was still a very experienced soldier and Alois expected him to win fast. he stated that the sudden turn of events should not have been possible. "Hey, and here we are now," Naruto said sheepishly, a wide smile crossing his face, showed him. "Indeed, and for that, I thank you, not as a leader of a noble family, but as the older sister of the girl you swore to protect." She bowed respectfully, "But now, despite successfully fulfilling your duties, I have terrible news to deliver, my emperor, you can come in." Nunnally called out. The said man entered the room with a solemn look on his face. "So, are you done? Have you told him everything?" "Yes, Fa, my emperor, all that remains is to deliver the news," she answered while bowing in respect. The emperor himself looked at her sadly for a few moments before he walked up to Naruto and placed his hands on the teen's shoulders. "My boy, this is not easy to say, but, even if the investigation of my daughter's kidnapping concluded that neither the Chinese Federation, nor the Britannia Empire were the conspirators behind the plot, retribution must still be paid from our side," Yao frowned sadly. "What?" Naruto looked a bit scared. "What do you mean?" "Britannia wants satisfaction, or it would be more accurate to say, the bloodthirsty Britannian nobles and the emperor's children are the ones who want to go to war for the death of one of their decorated knights of the round. Even if our nations were proven to be not responsible for the kidnapping plot. The investigation results showed that Alois was innocent as well, since no evidence was found linking him to the kidnappers," Yao's first daughter explained to the confused blonde. "The only one who is against the war from their side is none other than Charles V. Britannia himself. As odd as that may sound, he instead proposes an alternative solution, which entails with us handing over the murderer of Alois, and you know what this means, don't you?" Naruto's eyes widened as his blood went cold. "Why yes," the blonde shakily answered, and then became surprised when the emperor started petting him on the head. "You don't have to go if you don't want to," Yao offered while his daughter looked at him as if he went insane. "They are clearly at fault, even if they say otherwise. I am prepared to go to war with them, but something tells me that you won't let that happen, will you?" He frowned when Naruto shook his head. "My duty is to protect our country, and most importantly, our princess, no matter the cost," the blonde martial artist stated with an empty tone. Yao nodded firmly in acceptance as he walked away from his youngest daughter's only friend. "Naruto, right now you may be thinking that you are nothing more than a mere tool for me to use, but I assure that you are anything but that. To me, you are not just my youngest daughter's bodyguard, but also a precious family member as well," Yao stated gently. As if triggered by the emperor's words, Naruto suddenly gripped his head as he was assaulted by a sudden burst of intense pain. Tianzi's older sister quickly rushed to his side in worry. In Naruto's mind, an old memory had resurfaced itself. "Even if for a few short moments, Zabuza needed me, I don't mind being used as a tool, as long as he can achieve his dreams." An image of delicate boy, that could be easily be confused for a girl, flashed through Naruto's mind. "I fought for no one else but myself. I regret not telling him how much he really meant to me." An image of a dying man with razor-sharp teeth flashed through Naruto's mind. Few minutes had passed and the pain inside the blonde's head finally subsided, much to his relief. While he really wanted to know who the two people were from those short memories, he decided to put that off for later and instead focused on the situation at hand. "When do I leave?" he asked. Despite clearly being worried over Naruto's condition, Nunnally still answered his question. "In 2 days' time, Britannia will send Schneizel, Monica, and another knight of the round with her squad to take you to their country," she said as Naruto gently grabbed her arm when she placed around his head, clutching it tightly for comfort. All of his effort, all the hard work, all the blood, sweat and tears he shed for his beloved nation and Lihua, will be taken away from him. XXXXXXXXXXX. 1 day later. XXXXXXXXXX. 1 more day. Naruto muttered while pacing back and forth around a room that looked like it belonged to someone of incredible wealth. For his last 2 days in China he was forced to live in a safe house that was outside the main city. This was done to ensure that nothing happened to him until the representatives arrived, but Naruto knew it was more like a holding cell to prevent him from escaping. Of course, Naruto would never abandon his country, but some of the nobles thought otherwise and demanded that he be put under some sort of surveillance. As a compromise, he was placed in this house. Naruto. The blonde was broken out his thoughts when he heard Lawa's older sister call his name. He looked towards the safe house entrance and saw Nunnally enter the room while carrying various food products. most likely for him to enjoy some fine cuisine before being taken away. I am back. Hey, my last supper? The blonde asked sarcastically. The girl's lips became a thin line as she didn't want to answer the question. I am sorry, I thought I would make your final stay here a bit more comfortable by preparing a home-cooked meal, she said while small tears started rolling down her cheeks. It's all my fault. If it wasn't for my moment of weakness, you wouldn't have to go through such punishment. I should be the one sent away, not you. Naruto slammed his hand against a wall before quickly marching toward Nunnally. Said woman started backing away from him, but it wasn't long before she reached the wall behind her. Once the blonde was right in front of her, he placed both of his hands to the sides of her head and against the wall. Enough already. If you want to continue the pity party, do it somewhere else, Naruto stated while looking straight into her eyes. But Nunnally stuttered while looking down. I said enough. Yes, you made a mistake by giving into your fears and it ended up costing us immensely, Naruto scolded as the girl looked up at him with regret-filled eyes, with tears still rolling down her cheeks. What you should have done is found another way. If you were that scared that Tianzi is not ready to rule, then you should have told the emperor in the first place, instead of making a rash decision all by yourself. The older sister's teary eyes widened at his words. Despite being smart as genius, you forgot one crucial thing: the emperor values everyone's opinions. Yours especially. If you had told him sooner, you both could have worked to come up with a solution. Hell, he might have even made you teach Tianzi in how to run her country. But I am just Nunnally tried to protest. You are his daughter. Naruto roared as the girl's eyes lit up with sudden realization. So what if you have lower status? So what if he and your mother didn't end up together? You're still family, are you not? He proclaimed, reminding her of the strong bond she shares between her father and her little sister. The girl's legs gave way as she slumped onto the floor, Naruto's words hitting back and forth in her heart and soul. What have I done? Because of what I did, my sister will lose her precious first friend, someone who was helping her to regain her courage. Jin will be forced to find someone else to take Naruto's place, even though he already had the best apprentice one could hope for. And farther, father's health will continue to worsen due to stress from this whole ordeal. Before despair could fully consume her, a pair of arms gently gripped her shoulders. She slowly looked up and was surprised that the teen's expression was not longer one of anger, but of gentleness and sadness. What's done is done and can no longer be changed. Instead of wallowing in regret, focus on the present and the future. If you really want to make up for your mistakes, then start by confessing everything to the emperor and Tianzi, and I do mean everything. Naruto repeated firmly, if they choose to forgive you, don't let that chance go to waste. I will no longer be able to help our little lady grow, so you will have to do it in my stead. Teach her everything she needs to know about being a great leader, and make sure she is always protected. Naruto, Nunnally silently muttered. Naruto smiled and gently wiped away her tears. Lihua will be the future empress of the nation we love. Guard her well, so for when the time comes to claim the throne, she would be ready to face everything the world throws at her. Naruto asked. The older sister could only nod slowly as words failed to come out. After a few moments of silence passed, Nunnally stood up and looked resolutely at the blonde. I promise, Naruto. I promise that if I am forgiven, I will do everything in my power to help Lihua Tianzi become the greatest empress to ever rule the Chinese Federation. I will go tell them everything right now, but I won't be able to return. Just go, Naruto said. Then, for some unknown reason, he couldn't stop himself from grinning widely while petting her head. Hey, I only just recently got to know you and I can already tell you're quite a stiff, but I like that about you. A slight blush dusted the girl's cheeks as meekly nodded at the compliment and then left the room. After exiting the building and beginning her trek back to the palace, Nunnally could not help but wonder. What if Naruto had been made her guardian instead? Little Lawaz, maybe she wouldn't have made all those mistakes, and her life would have been so much brighter. XXXXXXXXXXX. Nighttime. Imperial Palace of the Chinese Emperor. XXXXXXXXXXX. Tianzi entered the throne room where her father and Jin were waiting for her. Father. Why did you ask me to come? She asked while scanning the room for Naruto, but was a disappointment when she couldn't find him. He was now gone for the whole day since she and Jin left for the city. There is someone who wishes to speak with you, the Emperor stated before gazing at the front doors. You may enter. The doors slowly opened and to reveal Tianzi's older sister, she looked forlorn at the three while slowly approaching the young heiress. Hello, Li Hua, she greeted respectfully. I am Nunnally Li, head of the noble Li family. You I know who you are. I've seen you at the imperial court and during parties farther hosted, the white-haired princess replied meekly as she wondered why this stranger is coming towards her. Once close enough, Nunnally smiled kindly as she lowered her gaze to meet Luo's. She started after taking a moment to recollect herself. I am your sister. The younger female took a step back after hearing the statement as sister. Why you're my sister? But mother never told me I had one, even before she passed away. Nunnally continued to smile kindly. I am your half-sister, little Li Hua. I was born from a different mother, but we share the same father. The younger girl quickly turned her head to see her father, who for the first time in quite a while, looked embarrassed and ashamed. She is telling the truth, he confirmed Nunnally's words. You're my sister. Li Hua slowly muttered those words, still trying to wrap her mind around the fact that she has an older sibling. Yes, I am your sister, and I am sorry, Nunnally confessed while looking down at the ground in shame, for everything that had transpired a few days ago. All of it is my fault. If only I had been more wise and braver, none of it would have happened. What do you mean? Please, explain, Tianzi asked shakily. The older sibling hesitated when she looked at her sister's worried expression. She wanted to tell everything, but the words just seemed to be stuck in her throat. Seeing the hesitation with her older sister's eyes, Li Hua surprised everyone in the throne room when she suddenly schooled her expression and in an authoritative voice asked her question again. I want you to explain to me what you meant when you said all of it is your fault. Upon hearing the commanding tone of her younger sister, Nunnally's hesitation had disappeared. For the next couple of hours, she explained everything and held nothing back. Li Hua carefully listened and only asked questions when she didn't fully understand something. The two men in the room, who remained silent throughout the explanation, became slightly worried when the usually shy girl started glaring at her half-sister. By the end of the story, you're the reason why Naruto is in trouble. I am, Nunnally confirmed without hesitation. And yet you have the gall to ask me for forgiveness. After everything you put Naruto through, the white-haired girl stated with tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. If I could, I would take it all back, but I can't, and now I will have to forever bear the consequences of my actions, Nunnally added sadly. The young princess turned away as her heart was riddled with various emotions, betrayal, hate, sadness. So many conflicting feelings were twisting inside her chest and she wasn't sure how to make sense from any of it. Father, you never told me what Britannia wanted in return for Aloy's death, Tianzi suddenly asked her father who was sitting uncomfortably on his throne. For the death of one of their knights of the round they had asked only for one thing, to hand over Naruto to their custody. We're still not exactly sure what they intend to do with him, but it is quite possible that they might want to execute him in order to quell the anger of their nobles, Yao answered in an empty tone. Tianzi's eyes widened in shock. They are going to kill him. Play Naruto soundtrack Sadness and Sorrow. It is a possibility, yes, the older sister stated softly, but, even if it did really come down to execution, he would gladly give up his life for us. What do you mean, Nunnally? Yao inquired, confused at his eldest daughter's words. I have observed Naruto for a long time, and after finally getting to meet him in person, I now understand that he is a man that is not afraid of putting his life on the line for those who are precious to him and his country, the girl explained with quivering lips, doing her best not to break down. He would rather sooner die than let any of you suffer. Stop it, Tianzi requested as she too was about to lose her calm composure. Tears started flowing down Nunnally's cheeks while her eyes remained focused on her little sister. Li Hua, you're welcome to hate me all you want. I deserve it all for what I did, but please don't hate Naruto for his decision. He is the very definition of loyalty. The young woman then got down to her hands and knees and bowed her head so low that it actually touched the ground. He might not say it outright, but we are all that he has in his life and he would rather die than let any of us suffer, especially you, Li Hua. Me, the white-haired girl thought to herself. She remembered how from the very first day she met him, Naruto had always been by her side, always there to pick her up whenever she stumbled, always there to comfort her when fear and loneliness closed in on her heart. When she finally started to gain more confidence in herself, Naruto would say it was thanks to all the effort she put in towards improving herself, and she wanted to believe that too. But she knew she was only deceiving herself. He was the true reason for her getting stronger, and she wanted to continue growing stronger with him by her side. But now that dream will forever be lost, and I will never be able to see his smile again. No, no, no. She cried out in her mind. Without a second thought, Tianzi turned around and ran out of the room. Lihua. Yao cried out in worry. Where was she going? The emperor's bodyguard's eyes closed as he walked towards the same direction Tianzi ran off to. Yao, my friend, for now let her be. She needs some time alone to sort out the feelings inside her heart. Don't worry, I will follow close behind to ensure her safety. Meanwhile, you have your own thoughts to sort out. With those words the Jin bowed curtly and then rushed after the young princess. I will also go. Yao's firstborn daughter, Nunnally, cried out and then quickly left to chase after her little sister too. Left alone in the throne room, the emperor fell into contemplation, tried to process what he already knew and what had been recently revealed by Nunnally. At that moment, it felt like the whole world was placed upon his shoulders and the decisions he will be forced to make will have severe repercussions in the future. XXXXXXXXXXX. Next day morning. XXXXXXXXXX. You ready? Naruto nodded as Li Wei, one of the few monks he trusted with any of his secrets, drove him towards the destination where the Britannia's envoys would meet him to be transported. Yeah, he replied somehow loud enough for Li Wei to hear him over the loud engine of the vehicle. Li, make sure you. I know Naruto. The monk cut off the blonde while looking knowingly into the distance. He or she most likely will never be as good as you, but we will do our best to find someone to replace you as Lady Tianzi's personal bodyguard, but just know that no one will ever be able to replace you as her friend. Thanks Li. Naruto smiled sadly, for everything. After driving for several more minutes the transportation truck finally came to a stop and the driver's head lowered as he hated to say the next words. Here. The monk's grip on the wheel increased so much that he could easily bend it he wanted to. As for Naruto himself, he jumped from the back of the truck before slapping it several times. You can leave, I'd rather be alone for this, the blonde said. After several moments the truck turned around and left without the blonde looking back to see it off. He instead faced forward and spotted a large, extravagant boat with two women standing in front of it and soldiers surrounding them. One of the women was Monica, someone he already knew, but the other one he wasn't familiar with. If the team guessed right, she was almost a decade older than him and had short, pale green hair with long bangs on the sides of her face. The left bang was done in braid while the other was normal. She wore the same Knight of the Round outfit as Alois had, save for the cape that was light purple in color, and she had a leather belt and a gun holstered on her left hip. The older woman crossed her as she looked at Naruto with intrigued eyes. So that kid was the one who killed Alois. Hey, I should buy him a drink and have tell me all about it. Lady Nonette, Monica exclaimed in a chastising tone while the soldiers surrounding them became a bit more tense. What? The guy was a prick and too stuffy, always preaching about Britannia this and Britannia that. It's as if he was some sort of fanatical leader of an equally fanatical cult. I am glad he's 6 feet under and rolling over. The woman, now identified as Nonette, nonchalant replied. Monica chose to remain silent as she didn't want to badmouth her previous teacher, although, deep inside she felt that the man deserved his fate. For now, she had to keep her inner thoughts at bay and show Naruto no kindness. She was ordered to bring him in no matter what. Even the use of force was authorized, but she hoped it wouldn't come down to that as she really wanted to make a positive connection with him later on. Sight well, here I am, Naruto said after approaching the two women. The older one nodded while pointing at the boar behind her. Indeed you are. Well then, come aboard, the green-haired knight ordered while Naruto did as he was told. Don't worry kid, you will not be harmed in any way. She smiled at him in a friendly manner after placing her hand on his shoulder. All right men. Get that engine running. We're leaving in 10 minutes. After boarding the ship, Naruto moved to the corner with Monica following him a few feet away, just to make sure he didn't try to leave. I know I should be the last person asking this, but were you able to say your goodbyes to everyone? Monica inquired, making Naruto look down slightly in shame. I did, but not to the one that really matters, Naruto replied, feeling terrible as he didn't tell his best friend about the departure. Naruto oh. No way. Naruto looked absolutely shocked after hearing his name being called out by a voice that he knew quite well. He quickly turned his head to the side and spotted Tianzi running towards the ship with her older sister and his Shifu following close behind her. A little further behind he spotted Li Wei waving at him while standing in front of his truck. Lihua, the blonde, moved briskly towards the ship's edge, only for Nonette's arm to block his way. "You can say your goodbyes, but not a single foot off this ship," she declared before retracting her arm. "Same goes for them. Not a single foot on this ship, or we'll be forced to take this as a declaration of war," she stated, clearly hating the order she was given. Naruto nodded in understanding and quickly pushed his arms forward. "Tianzi, stop. If you come any closer, you will be declaring war on Britannia." "I don't care. I'll declare war on the whole world if I have to," she shouted defiantly after reaching the ship. "Naruto, please, please don't leave. You're my only friend and I cannot lose you." Before she could step onto the deck, Naruto took a step forward, placing himself at the very edge of the boat and only a few inches away from his friend, his little lady, his sole reason for living. "I can't, as much as I want to, I can't. If I don't do this, Master Jin, Emperor Yao, your older sister Nunnally, and most importantly, you, will suffer for it. But it's not fair, you never did nothing wrong," she reasoned while grabbing his arm. Some of the Britannia soldiers prepared to take aim but were stopped when Nonette lifted her arm to hold their fire. "Please stay, Naruto. I don't want to be alone again. Not again," Lihua pleaded with tears running down her cheeks. The more he looked at her sorrow-filled face, the more Naruto felt his heart break. Despite all of this being Britannia's fault, Naruto could not help but blame himself as well. If only he hadn't been so brash, so full of himself, maybe this would have never happened. With a defeated look he tried to think of something, anything that could bring comfort to his charge, and then, like a ray of light, an idea came to his mind. What if I promise to come back? It might take years, but I will definitely come back. And you know me, I never break my promises. "Really? You promise?" she asked before Naruto nearly fell forward as the boat was about to move. "Ah, Naruto," she cried as she felt him pulling away bit by bit. "Yes. I'll come back to you. I promise," Naruto said as he held back his tears for a bright smile and lightly kissed her hand. The Princess of China nodded as she sealed the promise by kissing his hand as well. "I know you will," as she leaned forward as their grip was slipping. Then, their hands finally let go as Naruto couldn't hold on anymore. The last thing both of them saw were their tear-riddled faces full of grief. "Naruto, I, Zhang Lihua whispered softly before she fell to her knees and wept. Both Jin and Nunnally quickly embraced her, trying their best to comfort her. Both of them then looked towards the retreating boat and swore that for as long as they lived, they will do everything in their power to ensure that Naruto and Lihua meet again. Back on the boat, Monica stared at Naruto, who remained standing in the same spot. Knowing that his heart was in turmoil, she slowly began approaching him. But just as she was about to speak up, her new teacher gently grasped her shoulder. "Don't, give him time." They watched as the young guardian just kept staring into the distance with eyes full of pain. To him, losing his best friend was the same as having a big chunk of his soul ripped off, and all that was left in its place was regret and sorrow. XXXXXXXXXX. Line break. Several days later. XXXXXXXXXX. "Father, I am going to take my lessons with older sister now," Tianzi informed after she and father had their morning tea. The leader of the country nodded in approval. "Very well. If you need help with anything, don't hesitate in approaching me. I will always find time for you," Yao offered before Tianzi bowed to him and left. The emperor sighed as he leaned into his chair. It's been a few days since Naruto left China. There was no word of him since his departure, and as much as he wanted to at least check on the young boy, he couldn't, lest he risked going to war with Britannia. But there is at least one silver lining that came from this whole mess. His daughter had become more dedicated in preparing for her future duties. While she didn't slack off before, there was no motivation either, but now, she threw herself at her lessons with such vigor that her teachers were having a hard time coming up with a challenge for her. And that's where Nunnally would step in. His eldest daughter officially became Lawa's private mentor, and when it came to tutoring the future empress, Nunnally held nothing back. Of course, At first it slightly worried him how his youngest daughter only seemed to work and study throughout the days and barely left herself any time for relaxing activities like tea brewing or gardening. Well, gardening was more of a Naruto's hobby than his daughter's. But his worries were put to rest when his oldest told him about the promise Tianzi and Naruto made during the day of departure. While most would discard promises made between children, but Yao didn't. He knew that once Naruto makes a promise, he would damn well make sure to keep it. There was no doubt in the emperor's mind that the boy would crawl through hell itself just so he could see Lihua again. She has a long and challenging road ahead of her, but something tells that she will make it to the end, no matter what. Jin smiled softly. Now then, Jin, are there any news from Britannia concerning Naruto's well-being? Yao inquired in an authoritative voice. Also, any luck in finding a replacement for Tianzi's protector? We need to assign a new one fast, or else someone might try to attack us again by using my daughter. Unfortunately, we have no news in regards to Naruto. As for assigning a new bodyguard for Tianzi, I believe I found several candidates that might be up to the job, but I will have to test them first to see if they are truly worthy of such honor, the bodyguard of the emperor informed while stroking his beard. The emperor frowned at his friend's answers. I see. Well, all we can do right now is focus on the future and hope that Naruto is still alive and well. As for the bodyguard issue, I will leave that matter in your capable hands. Now, onto another agenda. We have received reports that someone has been visiting the area where Tianzi's rescue took place, or more accurately it's the place where I found Naruto, the Grandmaster stated softly before frowning in thought. The wasteland area was now sealed off for the local populace and guard patrols were increased to ensure that no one would try to use that place for suspicious activities ever again. We have yet to identify who this intruder is as our soldiers were not able to capture him, her during the last visit. Perhaps you should look into that matter personally as I don't want a possible enemy spy walking around our territory like it's their own backyard, Yao suggested. Jin nodded in understanding before heading towards the Shaolin Temple. He will need to gather some of his best warrior monks before the investigation can begin. XXXXXXXXXXX. Wastelands. XXXXXXXXXX. A man hummed in thought while looking at a blossoming peach tree that was somehow growing near the border of the wasteland. I was sure that I would find him around here. The man looked to be in his late 20s, possessed spiky silver hair that seemed to be oriented to his left side, dark gray eyes and a relaxed, heavy-lidded expression. He wore a tan cloak around his body and light robes underneath it. Sir, those imperial dogs are coming here. Two young men wearing ragtag armor around their bodies came rushing towards the man. We shall hold them off while you get to safety. Well, that just won't do. Let's be patient instead and politely greet them. This is their land after all, the silver-haired man said lazily. Besides, it's not like we're doing anything illegal, right? He chuckled with his eyes closing in almost the shape of a U. We actually are, since we are trespassing, which is considered almost everywhere illegal. So, we should really, one of the young men tried to reason. The monk's eyes opened up to reveal a kind, yet at the same time, stern look. Well, be fine, I just want to ask them if by some chance they know the person I am looking for. As soon as he finished his sentence, a worn-out truck pulled over a yard away from them and from the passenger seat climbed out the emperor's bodyguard. Jin, hello. The silver-haired man lifted his hand and kindly waved at Jin, like they were friends for years. Well, aren't you a polite young man? If you don't mind me asking, what is your business for being here? Jin inquired calmly. This area is closed off to the public and only Shaolin monks are permitted to enter. Oh, sorry, you see, I got lost on the road to life, the man answered cryptically, and all he received in response was an empty howl of the wind. Even his allies were silent. Wow, tough crowd, just like back home. Who are you exactly? Jin asked while crossing his arms. If one looked very closely, they would notice one of his eyebrows slightly twitching in annoyance. Be careful who you address, old man. This the Silver Fang of the desert. He can beat you faster than you can blink. One of the youths on the monk's side boasted. He has been protecting the weak left behind in the desert while you castle punks eat like kings inside your walls. Whoa, easy there, no need to get hostile. The silver-haired man placated his subordinate, calming him down. Sorry about that. He can be a bit of hothead sometimes, he apologized. Anyways, their reason I am here is because I am looking for someone. He goes by the name Naruto. Do you by any chance know or at least heard of him? Upon hearing his apprentice name, Jin instantly got into a defense stance. How do you know the name of my protege? The older bodyguard asked warily, while from the back of the truck warrior monks jumped out and pulled out their weapons. What? The silver-haired man blinked in surprise. I think you're confused. He's my student, he said before taking a step forward. Either way, it's really important that I get to see him. Can you take me to him? Even if he was here, which he isn't, the last thing I would want to take is take some unknown intruder to meet my student, the old man stated as he also took a step forward and continued to do so until him and the silver-haired man stood at arm's reach of one another. Now I'll ask again, besides having that fancy title, who are you, exactly? Well, I suppose introductions are in order, the silver-haired man said before clearing his throat. My name is Kakashi Hatake, teacher of Naruto Uzumaki, and currently the leader of this, tribe of free men. He lamely finished. Despite the nonchalant introduction, Jin could tell there was no lies in the monk's words. Judging by your name, you're most likely from Japan, the old man observed. Tell me, what is a Japanese man such as yourself doing here in China, besides the obvious? Kakashi chuckled as he crossed his arms. Well, to you I may look Japanese, but that does not mean I hail from Japan. I believe that's something Naruto would say, right? He actually never said anything like that. The boy doesn't even know his last name, the Grandmaster retorted, causing Kakashi's to widen in shock. Oh dear, that's not good. Could it be because of the light that hit him back then? In that case, Sasuke most likely also. Alright, since Naruto is not here, can you at least tell me where he is? Kakashi asked in the same manner a concerned parent would. Normally Jin wouldn't divulge such information to someone he just met, but years of experience told him that this Kakashi person can be trusted. Despite his odd quirks, he was taken prisoner by Britannia, for a crime he didn't commit, Jin answered while frowning sadly. The Britannian nobles demanded retribution for the death of one of their elite knights, or else they would go to war with China. To avoid that, Naruto had voluntarily agreed to be taken by them. I see. Psi*O, that student of mine, it seems that no matter where he goes, he will end up in interesting predicaments. Kakashi chuckled lightly after hearing the older bodyguard's answer. Jin himself gawked at the monk's response. Are you saying that you are okay with this? Don't worry too much about it. Naruto always gets into all sorts of trouble. Kakashi waved off the monk's concern as if it was a normal day. He then cracked his knuckles and lightly stretched his back. Well, time to invade this Britannia place. Now hold on just a minute. You can't just simply waltz into another country like you're going for a stroll. You will get killed before you even step a foot into their territory. Jin chastised. Just how easygoing was this man? That statement caused Kakashi to pause and scratch the back of his head in embarrassment. Whoops, I forgot that you can't cross the border here as easily as back home. Need to adjust my plan slightly. Didn't you hear what I just said? You will get killed before you even reach their border. Jin repeated while massaging his temples in annoyance. Kakashi only smiled in return. An experienced shinobi always finds a way to get in without a problem. Well, except for Naruto, he would just charge straight ahead and deal with the consequences later, he joked while Jin shook his head. The Chinese Federation and the princess already suffered a severe loss when Naruto was taken away as a prisoner, but at least he was taken alive. But if you follow through your foolish actions, Britannia might be forced in reconsidering if it's worth keeping the boy alive, and if that were to happen, nothing on earth would be able to stop me from ending you. Whoa, again with the hostility, you seriously need to relax a bit. Kakashi tried to calm down the older man. And how am I supposed to do that when some wise guy in front of me is planning to put my student's life in danger? I would advise you to consider mine and your situations better, Jin advised, but in a bit calmer voice. Then how about we work together? I can tell that you're quite a reasonable man and really care for the boy's well-being, Naruto's first teacher suggested while his two young allies gasped at the suggestion. I am willing to offer my experience as a shinobi and a soldier in service for your nation. All I ask of you is to take in the people from my tribe into your custody and away from the desert. Upon hearing the offer, Jin stroked his beard in consideration. Why should I? For all I know, Your claims of being a ninja and a soldier could be false, and by taking your people in, I would be putting China at risk." The silver-haired man cupped his chin in thought and after a few minutes came up with an idea. With the tip of his shoes he drew a fairly large circle and then stood in the middle of it. "All right then, how about a test of skill then? There's an old saying that two warriors often get to know each other better through combat, so let's see if whether that's true or not. Why not also make a bet of it as well? If you manage to knock me out of the circle, then I will leave this place and never come back, but if I win, you will take in my people and accept my services. How does that sound?" Kakashi offered. Jin raised an eyebrow at the proposition, but decided to accept either way. "Very well," Jin said before getting into a formal combat stance. "Winning or losing this battle doesn't matter as he will still get something out of it." The next day, at the Shaolin Temple, Jin was asked by the Emperor to explain from where the sudden influx of students came, and why did he accept a new apprentice without consulting him first. Jin only smiled in return as he and the Emperor watched Kakashi running around the courtyard with weights put on him and his personal attendants, who were once assigned to Naruto, chasing after the poor silver-haired man. Make no mistake, Kakashi had lost the fight and the bet, but Jin knows talent when he sees one, and this man, who claimed to be Naruto's first teacher, was brimming with it. Only a fool would let it go to waste. Plus, he also wanted to torture the man a bit for claiming to be the better teacher of the two. XXXXXXXXXXX. In Britannia. XXXXXXXXXX. Get up. It's time for you to meet the Emperor, the warden commanded as he looked at a chained-up Naruto sitting in the corner of his room, which, despite being called a room, was more equivalent to a prison cell. The blonde boy slowly looked up the man with slight anger in his eyes. He wasn't able to eat much since they took him, and what little food he was given was just some water and stale bread. Another major issue was that there was barely any light in this room, and for the past few days Naruto was forced to sit alone in near darkness. If he went back to time before he had met Tianzi and was still living in the desert, this kind of treatment wouldn't be much of a problem, but after living in a royal palace for several years and after gaining lots of friends, he now realized just how scary and depressing it can be to have no one to interact with. "Fine," the blonde muttered while standing up. The weights connected the chains made movement difficult, so it took some time for him to exit the room. The warden then led Naruto through some small hallways before they finally reached what looked like to be the main hall, which, if Naruto guessed right, leads to the throne room. The entire walk seemed to go on forever in the boy's mind as he had to almost constantly look down and check if the chains connected to his feet didn't get tangled up. After they finally entered the throne room, the warden stopped and called out to the blonde, "We are here, stop and get on your..." Thud. Finally. I thought the walking would never end. Naruto chuckled after collapsing onto the floor from exhaustion. "Seriously, if you're going to force people to cross that ridiculously long hallway, then at least make sure they are properly fed or install a vending machine. It's like trying to run a marathon." HMPH. It seems my son was not jesting when he said that you have a quite humorous mindset, boy. A voice filled with pride and strength boomed throughout the entire throne room, and that wasn't even a shouting voice. It was very similar to Yao's, a voice that belonged to someone who was born to lead and had immense power to back it up. "A true king," Naruto muttered silently after lifting his head with some difficulty due to the chains around his neck and looked at the king. There he was, Charles Z. Britannia, sitting on a throne that looked like it was carved out and molded from solid gold. On one side of it stood dozens of knights. The ones that were dressed as the Knights of the Round, like Nonette was, stood closest to the throne, most likely since they were trusted the most. On the other side of the throne stood Shinezel with some very fancy-dressed people, no doubt the king's children and family. "Do you know why you were brought before us?" Charles asked, but to Naruto it sounded more like a demand. "Simple. I killed one of your knights and now I have to die to satisfy some people with golden rods stuck up their asses," Naruto answered plainly, and was caught off guard when a smile crossed the king's face. It was kinda scary to see such an expression on a serious man. "Do you really think I care what those people want? I am the Emperor of Britannia. I shall be the one to choose your fate," he shouted, and the people inside his room shook at the power behind his voice. "Then why am I chained up like this?" Naruto lifted his arms to show the many chains that held and bound him from doing anything. "I needed to see if it was really true. The immense strength Shinezel claimed you possess. You see, child, Britannia isn't the strongest nation and kingdom just because of its superior technology, but also because it has gathered many talented people from both within its territory, and those it had conquered, Charles explained and looked directly into the blonde's eyes, and that is why you were brought before me. What do you mean? Naruto inquired. For some reason he had a really bad feeling about this. The Emperor of Britannia stood up from his throne and extended his arm towards the blonde, as a reward for defeating one of the knights of the round and proving your strength. Will you join the Holy Empire of Britannia? All this for a mere child. Charles frowned, having a hard time believing that a mere child could pose that much danger. I assure you that looks can be deceiving. He may be a boy, but underneath all that is a killer. He was even able to kill Alois. Shinzo reminded his father, who nodded at that accomplishment. While the boy did use tricks and deception to achieve victory and Alois was the most arrogant of the current knights, he was still very talented and there was no questioning his might, yet a child nearly 2 decades younger was able to best him. Charles stared hard at his son, taking in all the information he was given. After what seemed like forever, he finally said, "And you are sure this will benefit our country?" At first, no, the skillful schemer stated. We need more than him simply staying here as a prisoner for us not to invade, so if I may suggest a plan. XXXXXXXXXXX. Present day. XXXXXXXXXX. What? Naruto asked, confused at the statement the King of Britannia just said to him. I think I heard your royal ass wrong. He smirked before the soldier behind him elbowed the back of his head roughly. That only made Naruto chuckled. Who did you learn to hit from? Your husband? Ha! Nonette loudly before she stifled the remaining laughter down her throat when hearing that retort. Charles also smiled as if Naruto's little joke actually pleased him. Even now you don't let fear wash over or beg for life. You strive strongly to the end, although it doesn't have to be it. Naruto, I wish to adopt you into the Holy Britannia family, Charles Z. Britannia announced, standing tall as he got into his feet and raised his arms. Unacceptable. Never. He's just a savage. Naruto lowered his head in hopes to ignore the loud discontent from the family and knights of the large room, not from being hurt, just to escape the loudness from it. It was getting annoying. Your Majesty, with all due respect, you can't possibly adopt this savage. One of the court members cried out in dismay. You dare question my decision? Charles' voice boomed in the room, even if it was just a simple conversation. His voice had so much authority. No one would dare raise their voice lest they want to be killed. Damn, Naruto couldn't help but give the man credit. Like Yao, he didn't fear his own power if it meant silencing the others with his own aura of a king. My king. I also believe in this choice. Everyone turned to the second eldest son of the king, Shinzo, who smiled kindly. He has no family, and from what I said he has the strength to give some of our best soldiers a run for their money. The young warrior monk eyes turned to him. He could feel the words being true, but he couldn't trust the prince, especially knowing he manipulated Tianzi's older sister to get China to bend over for his kingdom. I decline. Exclamation mark. The princesses, princes, knights, the king's many wives. All looked at the young man in shock for his words. Did he knew what he was? I know what I mean. Look, I am not sure where I came from or not. Maybe I am Britannian, or even Japanese, or maybe mixed, but it doesn't matter. What matters to me is that I am Lady Tianzi's bodyguard, so kill me or throw me in jail, cause I won't let you guys harm my country, Naruto announced, standing up glaring at the king without a single ounce of fear or weakness in his kind eyes. Charles looked at the young man before, he started chuckling, soon that chuckle became laughter, and that laughter became that was almost like one of a madman. Ha 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 ha, you never cease to amuse me, Charles bellowed out. Although it was funny on how all it was according to plan like his son was telling him. XXXXXXXXXXX. A few days ago. XXXXXXXXXX. My plan is to give him a family, Shinzo said with a dark smile on his face, as the others who were nearby all gave looks of doubt. That's is where we can keep him loyal to us. Boy, you better start making sense. The king of the nation declared as he had no time for such annoying jokes. It'd better not be some farce to get you away from your punishment for. I assure you that this is no farce, Shinzo answered, bowing to him in sincerity. Charles stared down at his child, a child who is no doubt plotting his demise one day, but alas he needed something from him in the future, and pray tell, how will adopting him into the Britannia family benefit us? The young adult nodded. It will cause him to have bonds here. I saw how loyal he was to his king, teacher, and lastly the most attached he placed his loyalty above the Princess Tianzi. If he were to make new bonds in our family, he would forget about those that first cared for him, Charles surmised. No, it would be impossible, Shinzel explained, standing up to raise his right arm. Say this hand of mine is his nation. He then brought close to his chest. Not to sound too melodramatic, but it's indeed close to his heart. He was saved by people who gave him a chance, unlike our current society that shuns and humiliate others. Charles didn't say anything as his silence spoke volumes on how understood that, while his nation was great and strong, it had many fools who use money to hide what little power they actually had. A single nod was made to tell his son to go on, to which the prince gladly did so. So, what about another group that he has to protect and loves dearly? He has no choice but to protect them, but also provide for them by striving to be the best, the second prince stated as he brought his left hand in place next to his right. Therefore, we have a reason for him to stay in Britannia, who will protect his country, while also keeping his strength at the strongest to protect his new bonds. Shinzel ended as he let his arms fall back to his sides, as the idea was done and hopefully his father would see the genius in it. Charles pondered in silence to consider this option. His son had a reasonable argument. There were no margins of error. The young boy may be stubborn and loyal to a fault to the country that gave his life meaning, but there was the prospect that the boy can also be loyal to Britannia as well. It may be a slow process, but the results were guaranteed. He would have complete control over him. Who do you think would be a good family? I don't imagine that many of my wives would take in a foreigner as their son, Charles stated as some of the knights nodded to that statement. That was the bigger problem to his plan. Just as there were problems in Britannia, it all came from the royal family. Many like Guinevere and Karina are selfish brats, some like his older brother Odysseus aren't bad but cowardly. I shall take it upon myself to be his family, Shinzel offered as he crossed his arms. It is not much, but I will do all I can to ensure that Naruto is comfortable here. Even after what that boy did to Alois. Your subordinate. Charles frowned at his son in skepticism. Who is to say that he would backstab you in the end, after everything you've done for him? He wouldn't. I shall keep my appearance on low and let my dear mother break down his mistrust on me. He said in an oddly sweet tone. He might have his eyes on the throne, but his mother was one of the few people he loved dearly more than anything. Even Lady Marianne couldn't hold a candle to her kindness. Then my older brother, Odysseus, and his kindness could also help in making bonds as many of family. While most of the siblings tease him about his pacifying nature, all care for him due to his loving nature to all of us since we were kids. Again, Charles pondered in silence. Again, his argument was sound and reasonable. He almost wanted to think that this idea was completely foolproof, but there was always that small chance that it could fall apart. After what seemed like forever, the King of Britannia came to a decision. Very well, I entrust him to your care, but, are you sure this plan is foolproof? Haha. Father, I will admit there are flaws, as the timing could take a few years longer than expected, but sometimes we need to take a gamble. But I need you to make a deal with the young man, Shinzel admitted, although this part might be bad for XXXXXXXXXXX. Present day. XXXXXXXXXX. I will make you an offer, Charles stated as he uses his left hand to gesture his family. You join my family, and I will give my solemn oath to never attack China so as long you are my family and become a knight of the round as well, never losing your position. Naruto narrowed his eyes in suspicion. Just what was he playing at? What guarantee do I have that China will be safe? Boy, Charles' eyes practically shot flames of anger at Naruto for those words. If you even consider that I, a king, would not keep an oath to one who would be my family and aid my nation, then why are you the only person I have ever done this for? Naruto couldn't argue with that, while the king was a tyrant. From what the stories he had heard, through and through, he was a man that was true to his word, even if the things he set out to do were questionable and controversial. He was a man that looks at the bigger picture. Granted, there may also be cases that he would allow the enemy certain victories, only for the sake of the greater victory to come in the end. Fine. He swallowed his bile that was coming up for betraying his nation, but he needed his princess to be safe. So, how does this happen? Surgery. Fake papers. You don't have to do anything. My men will see to it, Charles said before looking at his many wives. All right. who wants this child, whilst he is a foreigner. He will bring great honor and pride to your family, our nation. He wasn't surprised when only the women gave the boy dark looks as if he was the plague. HMPHIC, he loudly stated, knowing that was the signal for his son to take this child. Fath. I wish to take this child into my family. XXXXXXXXXXX. In China. XXXXXXXXXX. Nunnally looked towards her sister as she stopped in mid-bite on her skewer. Something wrong, little G. She said as the white-haired girl nodded with an odd look on her face. I feel very angry, the once shy little girl said, although it was like she was stating the weather. And, it's bad, right? She asked, knowing the feeling should be a negative than neutral from what her little sister should feel. While losing Naruto to the enemy nation made her sister lose hope for a while, she slowly got better within the next few years. Yes, but at the same time I feel like someone just got into my territory and is closing in on my prized treasure, and all I want to do right now is to keep my claim on it, whatever that means, Tianzi simply said, not knowing why she felt so defensive on this feeling. HMPH, oh, do you think we can finish early so Kakashi can talk to me about Naruto? Nunnally barely held her giggles together. Ever since the new bodyguard came and somehow knew Naruto by telling her sister stories about him, she has improved in body, mind and studies, as it was her goal just to hear his odd stories. Wait, Naruto, could they? No. It's not like they are getting married, right? XXXXXXXXXXX. In the Holy Palace of Britannia. XXXXXXXXXX. Oh dear, Charles whispered under his breath, of all the women here, why did it have to be her? Why, oh why did fate have to be so cruel at a time like this? It was one of those days that life decided to give you the middle finger, and this is one of those days. He turned to see his true wife. There stood a woman, a beautiful young woman who had a slim yet strong build, a tall height, and fair skin. She also had big violet eyes and long black and wavy hair. Lastly, she wore fashionable dresses from elegant blue colors with slightly extravagant accessories to more simple outfits such as a long light orange dress. The king took an inwardly sigh. Marianne, are you sure? He asked, knowing she is one of the few people who he can't say no to. Why yes, Marianne answered with determination. How could I not take in such an adorable child? Wow, can we have an option too? Naruto deadpan as the woman might have been what those mercs would have sold him to. PFF'd. Once again the knights of the round rolled their eyes at Nonette, who tried not to bust a gut. The tyrant king sighed at this. He felt a slight migraine coming into his head. Again, Marianne was one of the few people he couldn't say no to. If he did, the Britannia Empire will surely be doomed. Very well, but I must ask that you keep your behavior in check, lest you want to scare the boy away. The woman nodded kindly as the other women glared at her. Looks like the common birth got her way again. Naruto shifted his head when he heard one of the women rudely muttered under her breath. He wondered if this had ever happened before. He prayed that nothing bad happens to him. The young guardian watched as the woman walked to him, and gestured her hand towards him. Come with me. Naruto simply lifted his bound arms to her. How? I am still chained up. XXXXXXXXXXX. Line break. XXXXXXXXXXX. Finally, Naruto sighed in relief, rubbing his wrists. He wanted to get out of those cuffs for so long, it was uncomfortable. Even when in the jail cell, he couldn't take them off. All that weight was making feel like I was a rookie back in my old days of training. Aren't you happy that you're free thanks to me? Marianne smiled motherly at him. Naruto just glanced at her before nodding. I will agree to that, but I know it's not from selflessness or kindness. You're just currying favor from your husband. Naruto coldly stated as he didn't have to like his new family just because he was with them. Granted, it was better than having that handsome blonde bastard as his older brother. The woman looked at him, eyes glistening with pain from his words. Do you really think that of me? I do understand if what Alois did and we force you to stay here. Marianne started looking sad at her new son's reason for being here. But I didn't want you to stay in a family that would only use you for power or marriage deals. You're still a young boy who needs love to grow up. Naruto looked down, trying not to meet her gaze. He was in quite the predicament. How was he supposed to deal with this? It was so complicated. Where were the simpler days when he was back home, where it should be? Ah. Marianne gently landed her fist into an open palm. I know you should meet your siblings. Siblings? Naruto parroted. How many are there? Just 2. Please come, she said, although the beautiful lady simply pushed Naruto ahead of the hallway with surprisingly powerful strength. It was a funny sight to see a woman drag a prisoner of war to her room. Some of the maids and other royalty snicker at Naruto's dismay. Don't worry, they will love you. The warrior sighed as he allowed the woman to continue to push him, as he didn't really need to spend energy walking, that if the woman was this strong easily pushing him without problems, he really didn't need to be dragged by her. You didn't have to drag me though. Oh nonsense. I am just eager to see you and your new siblings bond together. Marianne giggled. Oh, how exciting this would be for her. They're gonna love Naruto. She just knows it. XXXXX. The young man looked around a large home that was outside of the castle. He didn't have time to look, but seemed to be larger than most of the others he barely saw before being pushed into his new home. Then as his mother left him in the living room, which was almost the size of the dining hall back at China for parties, no doubt at the moment she was finding her other children to meet their newest addition to their family. The young man was standing to move around the area, as he stopped to a small bar with expensive-looking liquors. Taking one into his hands, he couldn't help but smile at the booze as it reminded him of his Shifu. While he was a monk, he partook in many flaws unbecoming of a Shaolin warrior, eating meat, drinking alcoholic beverages, and even gambling. HMPH, he might have failed as an actual monk, but he was a greater man. He wished the bottle could be given to his teacher since he was one of the few people he didn't have a chance to say goodbye. I miss that old man. Hey. The blonde nearly dropped the expensive object when a loud shrill voice came from his blind spot. Sorry. I don't drink, he announced loudly as he placed it back. Turning to, oh, Naruto voiced out to see a small young boy, possible 2 years younger than he was. Hey there little guy, you lost. The older male kindly said to see the boy lift his nose like Naruto's presence was something vile. Mother, the new help was going to steal from us. The boy yelled as Naruto eyebrow twitched at being called the help from a snot-nosed little piece of s. Lulu. The two blinked when Marianne came into the room with flames of motherly wrath in her eyes. Naruto didn't why, but he was not going to say anything stupid, as if he knew what hot-tempered mother would to do if he will say something, although he lost that feeling when he saw a little girl a year younger than the boy, so around 4 years younger than Naruto, standing behind Mariana's legs. That is your new brother. Show him respect, she ordered softly, knowing her son didn't really trust people besides her and his younger sister, but wanted to be firm to get her point across. This man is. He looks like he came from Clovis' mother, the young boy declared with an odd tone of confusion. I don't not understand, why is he here? That's when it hit Naruto, that among the others that were present in the meeting for his adoption, that most of the children, that if there were any, didn't attend to his fate, which makes sense given the boy's attitude. I know Lelouch, but remember that you have many aunts. One of them recently passed away and asked me to take care of him, or less he was going to be placed under the Ney family, Marianne stated as Lelouch cringed slightly at that name. Those family members were the worst since the 5th princess, Karini, was the worst member that Lelouch hated to talk to. She acts all sweet and cute in front of the adults but verbal attacks others who are weak and scared of her, like his dear mother. Who is this man? The youngest member of the V family stated, where all of them looked down to see her slightly scared face. The mother of the two simply giggled, scooping up her daughter into her arms. This is Naruto v Britannia, your new older brother. The girl's eyes brightened like the star for true north, when hearing her family, the main family of hers, just got bigger. Really? She asked with child wonder as the woman nodded and moved close to the blonde. Yes, say hello Nunnally. The kind woman gently asked her youngest child to do so when reaching Naruto face to face. Nunnally meekly looked downwards when she barely made eye contact with Naruto's own, proving she was Mariana's biological child from her amethyst-colored eyes. The young man couldn't help but smiled softly at his new sister. She was shy of new people like Tianzi but not as badly as her. I know, I have an ugly mug huh? He joked, hoping that it could make her less tense that she was already feeling. The girl shakes her head quickly, and no, it's just your very handsome like big brother Shinzel, she admits with a small smile, somehow missing Naruto's lips shaky from being called similar to the blonde manipulator. But, he simply nodded to her words. That's very kind to say so, Lady Nunnally. Naruto bowed while winking at her. And you are, he turned to the younger boy who was glaring at him even harder. Lelouch v Britannia, he finally allowed to say when his mother gave him a stern look. And me, your doting mother. Well, that's nice. Naruto deadpan as Marianne dramatically fell to the ground as if her limelight was taken from her. I am, your older brother is your Harem, our mother said. The former bodyguard could feel the woman beaming at pride at hearing Naruto call her that. Naruto. Naruto. Nunnally tilted her head in a very cute manner. I never heard of a name like that. Sounds Asian, Lelouch said, slightly intrigued why his new brother's name would be something of that descent. The mother of trio looked frazzled before nodding. Why yes, your auntie was very into the Asian cultures and wanted to use a new name since your father was too tired when he named the other children. Sounds better than Orpheus or something old-fashioned, right? Lelouch gave a skeptical look before looking at his mother in more kind gaze. Mother, how was the Knights of the Round doing? Ha, that's a good one. Naruto chuckled, ruffling Lelouch's hair, pointing at his mother who seemed confused at his words. She is one of the strongest knights. Oh no, it's true, Marianne stated kindly, no humorous or childish rebuke to come at Naruto. She was actually telling the truth. The young guardian eyes widen. The way she now has her emotions in check to make sure that he wouldn't misplace his evaluation of her skills shows that she is strong as always, or at least that what he could estimate as they could be stronger knights. Noticing his lack of words, she only kindly smiled at him. After dinner, we have to meet with the others to see your skill level, okay? The young man nodded, looking at his new siblings oddly. Right, brother and sisters, something that he hasn't had in his lifetime. Unlike the younger members of the monks and even Tianzi, he gave them some respect and kindness. Other than that, he wasn't sure how to take care of younger kids, considering he never really had the reason to learn. He didn't have those natural instincts of an elder sibling. So, what do you do for fun? Naruto asked in hopes to get along with his new family. XXXXXXXX. Line break. XXXXXXXX. More tea, Mr. Naruto. Nunnally held up a porcelain pot of tea as Naruto nodded, sitting on his knees as he and Lelouch were stuck playing tea party with the youngest member. He watched as a small amount of milk tea went to his cup. He gave a small frown. He wasn't a real fan of milk. It wasn't the most likable product he had. At one point he actually had stomach problems from an idiot monk who didn't throw out a carton when it was past its expiration date. And bigger concern was that if Tianzi ever saw him drinking milk tea than her usual ones that she made from scratch and experimenting, the poor girl wouldn't let Naruto speak to her until he drank a whole carton as punishment. Yes, please, Naruto answered, as he didn't want to be rude to her. He was always taught to always be polite to those who offered something to him. Nunnally smiled brightly, as she poured the milk tea into Naruto's cup, which he accepted in respect. You don't have to keep drinking each one, Lelouch said, slightly pitying Naruto as he understood in trying to make his sister happy, but he always knew when to stop after the third cup. What can I say? Old habits die hard, Naruto shrugged lamely. The younger boy raised an eyebrow at that before smiling at Nunnally. Hey, do you want to visit Cornelia and Yuffie tomorrow? Really? We can. Nunnally smiled widely at Lelouch in excitement. Who? Naruto blinked in confusion. Our sisters, Lelouch stated in an obvious tone when Naruto asked. Well, I figure they know who you are, at least Cornelia. Naruto nodded before watching some of the maids moving back and forth from the kitchen along with his new mother. I take it our mother isn't the type to let everyone do her work. Not in the slightest. She's pretty much active in everything she does, even the most trivial things, Lelouch shrugged, as he noticed Nunnally looking away. To allow him to switch Naruto's full cup with his empty, older boy sent a kind look to the boy who glared at him, most likely trying not to be thanked. Food's ready, the oldest woman exclaimed as the children all looked towards the kitchen where the maids gestured them to the dining room. They all stood following the maids to where their mother was sitting, with a large spread of Britannia cuisine. To Naruto it was quiet mouth-watering to see so many new foods to eat. The young man noticed the lack of chopsticks or usual bowls for soups. You use your utensil in the right, a maid whispered behind him as the young fighter saw an odd pitchfork item and used it, then used the knife in the left. Right, Naruto nodded as he slowly picked up the fork, though he was staring at it oddly as if it were a rare animal. This was going to take time to get used to. he watched as some of the maids started to place food to each family plates, but ignored a pouting Marianne who crossed her arms. "I said don't spoil us like this," the orange-dressed woman declared, waving her arms around childishly as the maids all sweat drop at her usual response. "I am sorry, madam, but this is what is on the menu," the head maid said. "I know, but Charles isn't here or the others, you can relax and take a break," she stated as the maids all shook their heads. "We're worried you might accidentally spill something, or get tipsy with the wine again. That was only one time. Or that time you accidentally got on fire when reaching the bread for Lady Nunnally," another maid simply said, blushing from the fact they saw Marianne screaming her head off when she was on fire for less for a second when they pour water on her, and still screamed when it was over. "I am sorry, on fire." Naruto's eyes widened. "Or that time you made one of our aunts eat spuds by shoving their heads into it," Lelouch stated as Marianne paled at the reminder. Naruto now gawked at the woman. Just what kind of mother is she to her children with that kind of hazardous attitude? "Lulu," the youngest child shouted, "she did that because Karini pulled my hair and didn't say sorry. That's taking it a bit too far, don't you think?" Naruto looked at Marianne with a wary look. "I couldn't help it. There. Naruto lost all sense of reason when the woman started to cry and clung onto the nearest maid near her, but soon gave a soft smile. Perhaps he was a bit close-minded when the woman took him in. She truly loved her children, even if it means pissing off the other wife of her emperor. This might not be so bad, he thought to himself as he looked at the dramatic mother who kept bawling. XXXXXXXXXX. Line break. XXXXXXXXX. "All right." Marianne bowed to the maids as she and Naruto were dressed. She was wearing a Knights of the Round outfit similar to Alois, but the cape color is a royal purple than orange. "Make sure the children go to sleep for their studies, all right?" she gently ordered the women who bowed in response. "Yes, Lady Marianne," they said in unison before taking their leave. "Where are we going?" Naruto questioned the matriarch. Her eyes held no motherly love, but a stern look befitting for a soldier. "As I said, we are going to see your skill level. Our Emperor Charles Z. Britannia needs to see your power before placing you in the Knights of the Round," she said in a steel-cold tone, walking towards the castle grounds to see 12 other knights standing in place, and also Charles himself. "Your Majesty." Marianne bowed to Charles in respect, as did Naruto, albeit reluctantly. "So this is the child who bested Alois," a dark-skinned woman with straight black hair stated. She was barely in her 20s, her emerald green eyes glared at Naruto's cerulean ones. "I doubt that." "I have seen it," Monica standing by Nanette said, before the older woman pulled her back as the situation was now serious. "But not the time," the older woman gently shook her head. Naruto felt a bit apprehensive seeing Monica again. Who could blame him since he's the one that killed her superior? Even now, Monica still hasn't forgiven the boy for what he has done. "Emperor, are you sure this child should join us?" a slightly tan man asked as he walked up to the Emperor of Britannia without fear but still held the greatest respect. "Why not an apprenticeship like young Monica or young Luciano? He needs to be tested and evaluated before I decide on what to do with him," Charles answered. "If he is to be one of us, he must prove his worth." "By your will, and what is your test?" the man asked as Charles pointed at him, causing him to look at the Emperor once more. "Lord, you shall be his test." Bismarck. Most of the knights stated in horror. Even Marianne looked aghast by this. "He is the strongest of us all." "That is exactly the reason why I chose him to test Naruto," Charles said, his tone even and perfectly calm. "If this boy could best Alois, then certainly there can be a chance he can best Bismarck. Do you object to this?" he asked the latter. "No, your Majesty," the knight declared before slight bowing his head to Naruto, making the kid raise an eyebrow at his respectfulness. "What kind of fighting do you prefer?" "I don't. Every knight is given at least a chance to fight in his or her specialty, like Nonette," the tan man pointed to the green-haired woman twirling a gun. "In firearms or myself in sword fighting." "You mean, I can use my own fighting style?" the blonde teen said in a stunned tone at the idea of being given a huge advantage. "But of course, it's only natural," Bismarck answered. "We are far more experienced, and the best of the nation. We would want you at your best." "Ah, there it is." Naruto gave a weak smile as sooner or later arrogance would come out. At least the guy seemed to be powerful enough to mean it. "Well, in that case, he said, before getting into a fighting stance. Hand to hand, it's my only saving grace after all. Very well, Bismarck stated before shrugging off his cape and got into a stance. Both his forearms were up and parallel to each other. This was a boxer stance, something Naruto had seen a few times on the television in the monastery when not working out or with Tianzi. Oh dear, Marianne sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Don't worry, Lady Marianne, I shall stop when I draw blood. The man sent a kind nod to his old and dear friend. Is there any rules? Naruto said before getting into an odd stance that many of the knights haven't seen. His left leg and right were apart slightly more than usual, with his right leg slightly back, and like Bismarck his arms were in a boxer's stance. None, Bismarck stated. Whenever you're ready. Start, Charles demanded as Naruto leaped forward, shocking the others. Sorry for this, child, Bismarck stated before his moved back and slammed his fist into Naruto's stomach, lifting him up as he flung the boy from his appendage, watching as Naruto flew far until his feet land on skid loudly on the ground, the dirt gathering at his heel to stop himself. Okay, lucky shot, Naruto coughed, smiling as his shirt was torn from that single hit. That power was greater than anything Shifu could do or even Alois with that axe, or was it a sword? His smile turned into a smirk as he understood one thing. He was able to beat Bismarck after all. Once more he rushes towards the man, swinging his right arm to land a heavy hook to the man's face. Bismarck felt the impact as Naruto's fist caved in a part of cheek before sliding back across the ground, but quickly went back, lifting his fist again. Right hook. Naruto mind raced multiple ideas before agreeing the best one, simply leaning back to narrowly dodge the blow before giving a wink to the man who looked surprised at his feet. The Chinese princess guardian duck under to land a left straight into the man's chest, causing him to be pushed back further this time. That fighting style, Monica started as it seemed peculiar to watch in action. It's Muay Thai, the tanned woman mused, recognizing it. You know it. Monica looked to her. That's wrong. Nonette stated. That's Lethwei. Lethwei. I've never heard of it. Monica shook her head. It must be not that good. The woman who was teaching her chuckled. It's not, just watch. They watched as Naruto and Bismarck continued exchanging blows after another. But it was soon Naruto was getting upper hand as he landed more blow from his blows and knees that were successfully making Bismarck slowly bleeding from his mouth. But the odd thing was how Naruto took each of Bismarck's attacks with smiles as if the pain wasn't there. This child, Bismarck thought to himself as he kept taking the hit. I think I am starting to see why he bested Alois. Marianne's eyes also keep a critical look towards her new son. He has no means of defending himself. It's all offense and no defense. Nod to that statement. It seems that it is working. Bismarck is only giving a few punches while the boy has given nearly 10 times the amount. What are you saying? Bismarck is holding back. Bismarck might be a swordsman, but he has never held back his whole life, the dark-skinned woman said, but it seems the teen's speed is outmatching even some of us. Charles could only look on as the fight continued. Like Bismarck, he could see why the child bested Alois. His power and strength were unlike anything he had ever seen. This boy showed much promise. He would be a valuable asset on the battlefield, and he will use this boy to set an example to others as to why Britannia is the most powerful country in the world. Bismarck, no more playing around. Show them your old style of fighting. It's hand-to-hand fighting. You don't have to keep up that knightly persona, the emperor stated as everyone save for the fighters looked at him in shock from his words. If that is your wish, your majesty, Bismarck said, before looking to Naruto. Well, you're in luck. The real fight begins now. Naruto back off before watching the man standing tall with no stance. Is he baiting me? Until he felt pressure. The same one that Yao and Jin gave when they became serious, but this one was a warrior's pressure. Something only those who fight can understand. The young man gave a smile at that. Wow, it seems I wasn't the only inhuman person around here. Naruto chuckled, not caring who heard his words. My thoughts exactly, Bismarck said, slightly bending his knees and move his arms forward ever so slightly. There was no indication in style, but Naruto could tell it seems for pure offense. He might have to use that. Ready, the knight said as his hair parted to show both his eyes. Naruto swore for a moment he saw actually red in their eyes, but he had to keep his mind focused. The two stood in their spots. For the first time in a long while, Naruto's instincts to kill were flaring up just to survive. the young run towards the knight, raising his right fist to attempt to strike Bismarck, only to drop down to his knees and grasp the mont's inner thighs in an attempt to flip him. However, Bismarck saw this coming and pivoted his body to spin out of the way. The result was useless as Naruto still gripped onto him, forcing the man to lean forward and letting his feet to find stable ground, until Naruto movement came to a halt, and with his firm footing knees Naruto into his nose. Gay. The young man grunted in pain, moving back to try to lessen the pain. Unfortunately, this gave Bismarck enough time to slam his foot into his right knee. He swiped to Naruto's left side, who avoided in time by a simple backing away, and again as the man kept fast and strong punches quickly as Naruto moved back. As Naruto was watching which fist was coming, he barely raised his right arm to block a high kick from the man. Damn! He shouted, moving his left arm back, but the attempt was stopped when Bismarck grabbed it and kneed Naruto's chest when pulling him downwards to it. And again, and many more after that. When Bismarck pulled his left leg for a particular stronger knee, Naruto capitalized that moment, sent a right straight into the knight's teeth. As the tan adult body was moved back from the blow, Naruto went down to grab his right leg and pulled up, forcing the two to fall down with Naruto on top of the experienced fighter. All of this was concluded in less than 45 seconds. He mounted him, Monica said in honest surprise at the skill Naruto had to actually have an edge against the strongest knight of the whole kingdom of Britannia. That's not Chinese or Lethwei. Marianne cupped her chin in curiosity in her mind and tone. The tan adult grabs Naruto's head in hopes to put him in a chokehold, but the blonde quickly breaks free to send punch after punch at the enemy he had. By the fourth blow, Bismarck pulled his leg towards his chest and sent it towards Naruto's chin, pushing him off until he quickly leaped forward, where Bismarck grabbed his arm and made his legs wrap around Naruto's neck. Amazing, the dark-skinned knight said, astonished at the skill of both Naruto and Bismarck fighting styles, but paled when the blonde gave a powerful shout, raising his entangled arm with the adult male with it, before slamming them down to the ground. But as Bismarck lost his hold, he tried to flip Naruto over, and the fight for the dominant position was out in full war. Neither one is going to let the other have the edge, Nonette whispered, acting like a true knight when analyzing their battle with a sharp look in her eyes. No more. Bismarck was soon blocking punches from Naruto until he simply pushed his hips, send the boy flying off his body. I've seen enough to get your skill set. Really? You have me figured out already? Naruto asked before getting his low grappler stance. Then let's see if you can see it. Bismarck gave a look to his emperor, who nodded. Do it. Naruto started to move once more, doing what he did last time, raising his arm to fake out but dropping to a grapple. Wham! Exclamation mark. The emperor's eyes widened in alarm when he saw Bismarck unable to counter Naruto's kick to his face. But didn't he got a kick? Didn't surprised him. It was how. Lethwei. In the last moment, Bismarck mind wander off as he saw Naruto's body shifted from a grappler into a Lethwei in less than a second for him to react. Watching Bismarck's unmoving body, Naruto grasped his waist, and when both hands reach each other then clasped tightly, he swing his back to send the man into the ground in a forward suplex. Without missing a moment, he rushed dozens of heavy hooks at the men who was struggling to block them, to the horror of the other knights. Impossible, the tanned woman said in slight shock. Bismarck was being pushed back. He pushed off Naruto when grabbing his fist and swinging him to the side. As the two got back to their feet, Naruto got into his Lethwei stance as Bismarck rushed him with eyes flaring with utter rage in them, watching as the kid was going to punch him and lower his body to at me PT. Crack. He got him again. A orange-haired boy at the same age of Monica whispered in anger when Naruto kneed the knight of Britannia and drew blood as well. He's using the basics of his fighting styles to throw off Bismarck, Nonette concluded as she understood why her ally was having a tough time figuring out and getting hurt badly from this odd style of switching various marital arts. Marianne could only look on in shock and surprise. Who would have thought that her new adopted son would display such savagery? If there were any doubts that this boy would best any man, those doubts were now thrown out the window. She was witnessing this firsthand and it was downright scary. I thought he was a Chinese monk. How could they teach him all these styles? They were traditionalista, were they not? Not Lord Jin. Marianne, surprisingly, Charles stated, earning a confused look from his wife. I had heard the rumors that he taught his students other means of fighting in case Emperor Yao would one day end their old traditions, but to see Lethwei, a bare-knuckled brawling style, grappling a standard in most of our fighting ways, traditional Chinese Shaolin martial arts, and who knows what else, being switched out so easily against Bismarck of all people. Is not only impossible, but actually being done, the usual kind mother said in a serious low tone, going to punch, hell grapple you to the ground, grapple. Just use lethway to attack at the undefended face, brawling will just be beaten by refined fighting from traditional martial arts. Not to mention that Bismarck is ungodly when reading people's movements, Nonette added on to her friend. For Naruto to continually catch him off guard like this, means that he is at our level. I have a feeling that if Alois wasn't fighting in his homeland he would died faster. What do you mean? Monica leaned in to ask her teacher. Naruto had to defend his charge, while also trying to help you and. At the time, Alois before being outnumbered, he had to accurately make sure not to burn himself out or get himself too damaged from the fighting. While he had to limit to one style in case those eunuchs didn't have any means to suspect him when using other styles of fighting as it seems disloyalty to his country, Alois was facing a cage lion, meaning Naruto had so many handicaps he couldn't fight at his best. The green-haired woman smirked as she placed her hands on her hips. He's got my vote. An old man standing beside the orange-haired teen nodded. I also agree. The dark-skinned woman nodded as well. I have some reservations on his background and age, but I allow it as well. I as well, even if I am not a part of the round. She bowed her head to her emperor. Marianne gave a smile, both one with love, and warning on how Charles felt his spine went cold. Me too, right. Normally he would sentence most to death, but given their true relationship, he couldn't. But on a serious note, more than 5, even if one is a future candidate for knighthood. All agreed. He watched as the others, some nodding as the others shook. He saw the mass approval outweighing the negative. It was done. As the two fighters continued, they heard the sound of a cape fluttering in the wind, making the two turn to see the emperor flamboyantly flourishing his cape. Enough, Charles ordered. This caused Naruto and Bismarck to look at the king. Both of you, stand down. I have seen all that I need to see. Yes, my oof. Sorry, Naruto said, moving his hands towards his mouth as syncreity came from it. Jin told me to attack one time in case. Naruto and Bismarck then both stood up and Charles walked towards them with a stern look. So, what is yours and the knight's verdict, your majesty? Bismarck asked. The child, the ranks of the knights. His number will be judged by you tomorrow. Emperor started off before glaring as the others roared in disapproval. If anyone has objections, why not prove it to me by facing Naruto? He gestured the less damaged teen who looked less beat up than Bismarck, but given his bleeding nose and large amounts of dark bruises, it still made some slightly silence on how their leader was much worse for wear. The disapprovers stayed silent. Not one dared to raise their objections. They saw how violent Naruto was. To be killed by that child while already suffering at the hands of their emperor would be the most foolish decision and most damning indignity they would ever make. Well, good. Naruto spat out some blood as he looked at Bismarck. I could have lost if I didn't do that. Glad to know you also knew that, he said with a soft smile before walking away. Lady Marianne, you might want to grab your son. The woman looked confused as Naruto's body started to sway and about to fall until she grasped him, and Naruto. She asked, scared if he was in pain more than he let on. I am fine. Kinda burn out more stamina than I thought with the pain also being a factor, he announced, slightly a bit angry at himself for letting himself nearly losing and using everything just to win. Don't strain yourself, please, Marianne said worriedly. I told you, I am fine, just, worse than it looks, Naruto groaned out. He is definitely going to need a lot of ice packs after this. As they walked away, Nonette looked at her student. Do you see Monica? Naruto was able to face off the strongest knight, but did it matter if he made a crime? He proved himself to us. I believe Alois tarnish his knighthood, but we got a better replacement. Monica remained silent as she only looked on at the boy. All she knew was that boy was dangerous, but at the same time, she feels responsible for this outcome. XXXXXXXXXXX. The next day. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto, whose face was slightly covered in bandages and gauze, sat nearby watching Nunnally and Lelouch play with the other kids in the castle, while he was forced to watch as his mother and the other knights discuss his ranking or something. If there was one thing he hated, it was waiting and doing nothing. He was an active boy. He needed to do something to keep himself preoccupied, but given his current situation, that won't be happening anytime soon. Nothing to do. Naruto yawned boredly as he had a hand on his chin, his elbow resting on his leg. This seat taken. He turned his head to see Nonette smiling at him. Relax, we made a decision. I was sent to fetch you, but we can wait until Marianne come to get your siblings, the female knight of the round. Sure. That's fine. Naruto got out as Nonette sat next to him, watching the other kids play. You know, you are really something. Nonette began speaking when taking a seat on the bench Naruto sat, making the boy turns to her. Never have I seen Bismarck actually being forced into a corner and caught off guard. No one has ever done that, but you made the impossible, possible. I got lucky, Naruto truthfully said. Here in the Knights of the Round, no one gets in by pure luck. Nonette smirked at him. Perhaps it was your instincts, but you utilized everything you have been taught to the fullest extent. You mastered those techniques with skill and precision, and without hesitation. That right there is the mark of a true Knight of the Round. Why are you here? Naruto asked the woman who smiled at his cautious nature. Nothing really. I came from the slums when I was a kid, so I understand that others persecute you for not being rich or background, she told him, so I wanted to make sure you have a friend, even if you don't want one. A friend, huh? Naruto mused as he looked back at Nunnally and Lelouch. His thoughts went back to happier days, back when he was in China, when he was training with the other monks and being with Tianzi. Even though those days were good, bad, or just outright crazy, he still cherished those memories and those he cared about. He never forgot the days he spent with them, as they were irreplaceable to him. Wah! The boy bolted upwards when he heard Nunnally crying loudly to grab both him and Nonette's attention. What's wrong, Lady Nunnally? Nonette asked with slight concern. She couldn't stop crying, barely able to utter a single syllable or word. Before Nonette can do anything, Naruto got on one knee and patted her head. Hey, he started gently. It's okay. Take your time. As the girl slowly calmed herself down, Lelouch came with a bloodlip which she pointed at him. Lelouch, protect me from Karini, big sister, hit Guinevere, slap his face. It's fine. That brat always. The young prince stopped when Naruto grabbed his shoulders, but no pain came from it, but his eyes showed the young man concern. What? Where? The young man only pointed behind Naruto as he didn't want to even think of directing that possible rage to himself. Without another word, Naruto swiftly made his way towards the perpetrator that supposedly made Nunnally cry. He saw where Lelouch pointed, seeing a snickering red-haired girl and pale-skinned lavender-haired woman. Hey! He shouted, earning the attention of all the kids. You made Nunnally cry. Yeah, what? She stopped when the boy in front of her practically oozed killing intent, making shakily fall on her rear. You will never bother her again. Your family even thinks of hurting her in any way possible. It doesn't matter what happens to me. I will make you suffer, he vowed as the girl pointed at him when tears start to build up. Don't. He simply leaned into her face with a dark smile. You know physical pain will leave. Humiliation and trauma stays forever. He winked, patting her head condescendingly, walking back despite the other children were glaring at him. He arrived to see his younger siblings before leaning in with a smile. Next time let me know and I'll mess them up. Lelouch gave a crude smile, evidently liking how his new family member avenged him and made his sister stop crying. Definitely, he said as Nunnally frowned. I don't want you to hurt them, she said, making Naruto eyes widen before chuckling. If he ever got the chance to return to China, he would bring Nunnally. She has the kindness of his princess, but he had to ease her worries. I don't hurt women, unless they can kill me with their own hands. Naruto whispered the last part of his sentence to himself. A friend taught me some pranks to make sure that I had ways of making them learn their lessons. That made the younger boy smiled widely. Mind sharing some of them? Naruto gave an equally large grin as well. Sure. Nonette from the side couldn't help but enjoy this scene. Marianne seemed to be worried that her children wouldn't take to Naruto, but seeing Naruto carrying Nunnally on his back, while chatting with Lelouch, made her have some good news to tell. Thanks for watching.